Hi, and welcome to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm Ange, MacCabe, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance. I'm a performance coach, HR professional, whole person leadership facilitator, and your host. The Human Side of Business podcast is fueled by the genuine curiosity to understand how personal characteristics and skills can be leveraged to drive individual and team performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately organizational success within business. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, expanding our learning edges, and exploring the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of organizations. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, and a warm welcome to the Elevate Business podcast. Both myself, Ange MacCabe, and Scott Russ are your hosts. We have the pleasure of introducing you to Josh Little, who is the founder of 4 tech companies, Maestro, Bloomfire, Quizzer, and most recently, Volley. They have collectively been used by hundreds of millions of people and featured in TechCrunch, Mashable, Entrepreneur, Inc., and Forbes. Josh is currently on a mission to help remote team communication more effectively with his 4th creation, Volley, a video messaging app. Hi, Josh. Welcome to the Elevate Business podcast. So happy to have you here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Likewise. So tell us about yourself. We're interested to hear about your journey. You have quite a background in the sense of business building from Maestro, Bloomfire, Quizzer, and now Volley.
Yeah, well, I guess the story starts as a classroom teacher. I have a degree in education, taught in public schools for a year, and I knew right away it wasn't my thing. So looked around for what on earth could someone do with the skill set for the world, and it turns out sales is something that I was very good at and didn't realize while I was teaching. But yeah, I had a very successful career in sales and sales training and marketing at 3 Fortune 500 companies, until I just got the entrepreneurial itch and built my first company. Maestro started in 2007, grew that, saw problems that could be solved in the learning space. So from the profits of Maestro, we built a SaaS or a software product called Bloomfire, and I grew that. That got acquired in 18 months. And then thought I was retired, but after about a year, got bored and got back to work. Built a company called Quizzer that had hundreds of millions of users, and left Quizzer in 2016. Then again, thought I was done, but after 4 years, I got bored and was looking for the right opportunity and kind of my magnum opus. And the idea for Volley came along, and right around the time of the pandemic, and just realizing, you know what, the world needs a new way to communicate that's both flexible and rich. And there's just, let's build Volley. And so that brings us to date. And so we've been building Volley, and it's been used by teams, and now we're seeing it take off with coaches and creators building their membership communities with Volley. And so it's been a fun journey and kind of fun, building that magnum opus.
That's fantastic, Josh. And I love this whole retirement and then not retired anymore and then back and forth. You keep extending that timeline. I think that's really great how entrepreneurship keeps pulling you back in, so to speak.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. My mission in life is to make beautiful things. That's what I believe my purpose is here. And I can fulfill that by making a jar of pickles or a piece of furniture or building a 4x4 in my garage. But there's nothing that really creatively taxes me like building a company. It's and just like the dent it can make in the world, create opportunities for others, solve a meaningful problem. So I think that's why I keep getting called back. And yeah, maybe next time it can be 10 years. I don't know how long the next break will be, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's fortunate for sure. Sorry, Scott, I cut you off.
No, it's all good. I had to go for it.
Really interested to hear, Josh, your passion. Tell us about this with regards to the mission behind Volley. How did it arise for you, and what ignited you to go there essentially?
Yeah, well, I like to say that I've been thinking about the problem for over a decade. Bloomfire was very much trying to solve how to get the right information to the right people at the right time at work, and how to give somebody, what they need to know to do their job. And today, Bloomfire is one of the premier knowledge bases out there. But Volley is very much how to get that right information to the right people at the right time in the right way. And so thinking about that problem for years, seeing new technologies like Snapchat and Marco Polo like solve an interesting problem with async video. And then the pandemic hitting was like, I know what the world needs, especially remote teams, a better way to communicate. Because if you think about the traditional ways to communicate, you're either typing or you're talking. Those are your two options. And when you type, you're doing something that's asynchronous, email, chat, text. All asynchronous falls into the typing category. And when we choose to do that, we're choosing to do something we're 7 times slower at than this gift that we have of talking. But when we go to talk, we either have to get on a Zoom or get on a room, and both of those are synchronous, meaning at the same time. That means we have to stop what we're doing. We have to get in the right place. We have to deal with technical difficulties. We have to, all of the bad behaviors of quotes meetings. And so there's really nothing in between those two. And with Volley, we're trying to create a new way to communicate that has the richness of talking with the flexibility of texting. So Volley's a video messaging app. We take turns, just like any conversation, like we've done in this conversation. We've taken 3 or 4 turns. But in Volley, you just record your turn with a video. And that gives us the benefits of both of those, that flexibility that you need. So I can now use the 93% of the picture of communication, which is tone of voice and body language. It's not just the words that I say, it's how I sound when I say them and what I look like when I say them that actually carries the majority of my message. So for small, thin messages like lunch is here or done, we don't need tone of voice or body language, but most messages, especially at work, could be better if they did carry one or both of those. And so Volley gives you the full tool belt. You can also send a voice Volley. You can write a text Volley, but in Volley, it's a video first app. So, the camera is up, it's on you, there's a record button. It looks like that's the thing you do. So for that reason, about 60 to 70% of Volley sent are video Volleys because it's a lot faster than typing, especially with thumbs this big. So I'm not about to do that. It's just easier to hit record, say what I need to say, and move on with my day. And that's what Volley can help with. So that was kind of from your question of, where's the passion into the why Volley and why that solution at this time.
I really like the human element that you're bringing to remote communication. And, tackling the challenge that, how many times, like we've all experienced it, whether it be by email or on Slack, that there's miscommunication or, you read something one way and in your head, you thought they were saying it this way. And yet in their mind, they were saying it completely different. As you're kind of eliminating a lot of that back and forth and that miscommunication by presenting an opportunity for people really to show up and just to speak directly to their team and collaborate that way.
We just did a survey actually of 2,000 remote workers. And I was shocked to find, not shocked, just shocked at how high the number was. 99% said they have to clarify a written message at least once per day, like an email or a Slack message, right? Yeah. And I was like, whoa, like almost everyone said at least one. We should have said how many times a day in that question. But I didn't think it would be 99. Wow. Well, cool. And the classic example is we need to talk, right? And if that's written in text, there's about 100 ways that could be taken. Mostly aren't good, right? That we need to talk. But if you hear me say, we need to talk, you can see it in my eyes, you can hear it in my voice. There's no mistaking. Like, I've got something cool. We're going to talk and it's going to be great. And there's no misunderstanding that, right? So of course there is still room for misunderstanding. We're human, we're communicating, but there's a lot less room if we let tone of voice and body language help carry our message.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. And how have you integrated that with your team?
Well, we use Volley as our primary method of communication, and that's kind of what we tell our users is if you want Volley to be able to deliver the benefits that you hope it to deliver, better communication with less misunderstanding, like reduced meetings and improve connection and a feeling of being face-to-face without being face-to-face, you kind of have to use it as your daily driver. And this is what we saw a lot of our users in the beginning is they would download Volley and they'd say, cool, we've got a new toy. And then they'd go back to Slack behavior and Zoom behavior. And Volley then sits kind of in the middle of those two, which, yeah, you can keep it as a hobby car that sits in your garage that you take out once a month and drive, and it's fun. But for Volley to really deliver those benefits, it needs to replace your async communication. So which is probably a text first, async like a Slack or like a Teams. Text first meaning the text box is your primary input method. That's what you see. You see text above, you see a text box below. If that's what you see, that's what you're going to do, right? And in Volley, we flip that where it's like I said, it's a camera that's on you. There's a record button at the bottom. And yeah, right below that, you can hit text and enter text, but it flips the paradigm. And what teams find when they start, it's uncomfortable at first, no doubt. It's uncomfortable. What I'm finding is most of our users have never even made a video of themselves in their life, which is crazy. Snapchat, all these other tools, they've never done that. They've never flipped their camera around. The idea of a selfie is weird. And so it feels weird in the beginning. And that takes a couple of weeks to kind of get used to. But then once you see the benefits, once you can start to understand, I can listen to others on 2X. I can respond when I have time. I can cancel and restate and say that better. I can take back what I said. I can delete that Volley. And all of these magic, and I'm talking, that would have taken an hour to write in an email because I'm going to obsess about bullet points and I'm going to think, but it just took 5 minutes for me to just say that, top of mind in Volley. And I said it with all of my, energy and experience and everything that I have. And so message totally clear. So once you start seeing all those benefits, then it's like, okay, yeah, and I'm over it. And yeah, and so we try to teach users to not obsess about how you look and just say what you need to say and hit record, say it, hit stop, and it's gone. So we try to enforce a lot of the, or not enforce, but help a lot of those things in the app. But it's still a new way to communicate, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. Which is okay. We're trying to pioneer. We're trying to bring a new technology to market, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'm curious, Josh, did you see kind of these challenges with these other companies that you were scaling up in terms of async communication and things along those lines? And is that kind of what helped bring up this idea for Volley from a communication aspect?
Well, it's really personal experience. My last 3 companies, we've tried to do remote. We really wanted to. We read Jason Fried's, remote workbook, and everyone read this and let's go. And we're going to do this. And then inevitably every time it's just communication is immediately the bottleneck. It's we can't communicate like we did in an office. And even though we have tools like Slack, even though we have these tools, it's just it doesn't flow. It doesn't flow the same way as when I can just reach over and say, hey, or tap you on the shoulder or walk over. When there's proximity involved. And so every company, we've gone back to the office. And I think we settled at, Quizzer with a work from home Wednesdays. And that was just the best we can do. And essentially that we're just holding our breath, for Wednesday and doing some deep work, which is great. Right. But yeah, having those experiences and realizing, now with the pandemic, there's going to be a bunch of companies that are forced into it. They're not even going to know how to make that happen. And yeah, communication is the bottleneck. This is why we have Zoom fatigue and we're slacking our faces off all day. And so, or just communicating less. Right. But, I love that Simon Sinek recently said, forget the title of the video, but the idea was, he said, you all know we're living on borrowed time here. The only reason this remote work is working is because we had existing relationships. We already knew each other when the pandemic hit. And so for that reason, we're kind of able to transition well, but now add someone new to the mix. How do they spin up? How do they get connected? How do they know, that this team member likes this, or, the nuances of each team member, and get to know them as a human being? That's really hard. Especially on a Zoom, even if we do Zoom happy hours or something like that, that's like forced fun. By definition, that's not going to work. And so Volley kind of breaks that apart and lets you, just pop in and say something funny, or drop the GIF or whatever. Or because it's mobile, right? You're going to be walking the dog. You're going to be out jumping in the car or sitting waiting to pick up your kids, and inevitably questions will come up like, oh, that's a cool sunroof, or, oh, I didn't know you had chickens, or, whatever the thing is that comes up, right? You get to see the humanity. And while Zoom, yes, there is video, I am very much sitting in this chair. There's a nice leather chair sitting behind me. There's a nice light behind that lamp over there. Were all those things there before I started? No. Are they there to look nice? Yes. So we are kind of like putting on some sort of facade. You two are in beautiful offices, look like you're in the same space, but not really, right? So it's not really showing our full selves, our real and raw selves on Zoom. And I think that's what Volley kind of breaks apart, but also threatens if your culture is not willing to go there. And I know both of you know a lot more about, building culture and setting culture with teams than I do.
Yeah, I like where you're going with that, Josh, in the sense that there's many people in culture professionals out there right now with that same line of thought. We have to work remote, or now, we have an employee market that also wants to work remote, is what we're hearing. And oftentimes during interviews, that's one of the, kind of housekeeping questions at the end. Do I get to work remote? And so to your point, the big question around a lot of tables right now is, okay, how do we create engagement in a remote working space? And I think you nailed it. It's bringing your personality to the remote working space and having the tools and apps to be able to do just that. I'm really curious, pivoting just a little bit, looking at the team and leaning into your experience, Josh, what kind of support does a fast scale-up team like yours need to perform at its best?
Yeah, well, I mean, just like any team, there needs to be clear goals and the resources. We need the work laid out in front of us as clear and as possible. So that's a given with any team. But I think remote teams especially need a lightning fast way to communicate well. And that's why I saw the opportunity for Volley is Slack isn't communicating well. Yes, I can write you a text message, but we've already talked about Zoom is interruptive. So both it's a pick your poison. So it's like choose to do something slow that doesn't have the context that maybe it needs, or choose to do something interruptive that will magically, like a sponge, fill up whatever time you give it. Magically, a 1 hour meeting takes about an hour to get done. Are we just that good at guessing how long it takes to talk about things? No, meetings, just like Parkinson's law says, will fill the time that you give them. And we'll, subconsciously we know that we have time, and we'll extend it or not. Right. And so with Volley, you hit record, you're on, you get to your point. Like there's no reason to not get to your point with Volley. And that freaks some people out, because it's like, well, I'm on. Do I really have something to say? Do I have my thoughts gathered? But that's the beauty. You can hit record now. You can take 30 seconds. You can take 30 minutes. You can go do some research if someone asks a question. But if you tap on my shoulder in an office environment, you don't know what you're interrupting. I may be writing the last line of the manifesto. I may have just figured out how to solve that critical bug we've been working on for a month, and you interrupted me with hey, should we order cheese puffs or not? With the quality, you just never know what you're interrupting. So hopefully we're creating space. But to your question, a lightning fast way to communicate well, and that's what we've seen, with our own team, especially at Volley, like we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing and move as fast as we are without constantly checking in, syncing up, unblocking one another throughout the day, and being able to show our screen and to show the problem that we're working on, or show our whiteboard and what we're thinking, and get pretty quick, immediate feedback as if we were in proximity, but giving the space that asynchronicity can, just letting you have the minute, 10 minutes, an hour, whatever, to respond. And that's, given the need or the urgency of the conversation, and every conversation or topic has different level of urgency.
Yeah. And I guess looking towards your team's growth in 2022, what are some ways that you're trying to support them or invest in their growth within the company?
Oh man, I don't know. I probably answered this question poorly, but I think remote teams especially need a lightning fast way to communicate well. And that's why I saw the opportunity for Volley. Is Slack isn't communicating well. Yes, I can write you a text message, but we've already talked about Zoom is interruptive. So both, it's a pick your poison. So it's like, choose to do something slow that doesn't have the context that maybe it needs, or choose to do something interruptive that will magically, like a sponge, fill up whatever time you give it. Magically, a 1 hour meeting takes about an hour to get done. Are we just that good at guessing how long it takes to talk about things? No, meetings, just like Parkinson's law says, will fill the time that you give them. And we'll, subconsciously we know that we have time, and we'll extend it or not. Right. And so with Volley, you hit record, you're on. You get to your point. Like there's no reason to not get to your point with Volley. And that freaks some people out, because it's like, well, I'm on. Do I really have something to say? Do I have my thoughts gathered? But that's the beauty. You can hit record now. You can take 30 seconds. You can take 30 minutes. You can go do some research. If someone asks a question, but if you tap on my shoulder in an office environment, you don't know what you're interrupting. I may be writing the last line of the manifesto. I may have just figured out how to solve that critical bug we've been working on for a month, and you interrupted me with hey, should we order cheese puffs or not? With the quality, you just never know what you're interrupting. So hopefully we're creating space. But to your question, a lightning fast way to communicate well, and that's what we've seen. With our own team, especially at Volley, like we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing and move as fast as we are without constantly checking in, syncing up, unblocking one another throughout the day, and being able to show our screen and to show the problem that we're working on, or show our whiteboard and what we're thinking, and get pretty quick, immediate feedback as if we were in proximity, but giving the space that asynchronicity can, just letting you have the minute, 10 minutes, an hour, whatever, to respond. And that's, given the need or the urgency of the conversation, and every conversation or topic has different level of urgency. Volley's very much in like wartime sort of growth at the moment, like seed funded, early ventures backed startup, trying to find product market fit. So I don't know, honestly, that we'll like grow the team in numbers that much this year. So there's not a ton of hiring I think that we're going to do, because I think we have our go-to-market team and we're locked in. But I know you're not talking about headcount growth. You're talking about like personal growth and ability. And so we've done some interesting things at Volley, I think, that enable those sorts of things. We've created a number of channels in our Volley space, like a Wanderlust channel that we're now using whenever you're doing something cool. This could be like at an event with your kids, or this could be while you're traveling. Drop a Volley in Wanderlust and show us what you're looking at. Show us where you're hiking today. Show us what you're doing. So that's helped us realize that even though we're building something big and important and fast, that there's still important moments outside of work that we can then bring in and start to learn about what we're interested in or passionate about as humans. So that one's been fun. Or another channel that we call Kudos, which is totally organic. One of the team members created it, and we just drop like, day in, day out, like kudos of like, I can't believe Spencer helped me with this today. I just want to give a kudos to Spencer. And it's, because we have the video messaging thing. It's not like, hey, everybody, let's call a meeting. I just want to call a meeting. I just wanted to say Spencer did a great job. Okay. Nobody's going to call a meeting for that. They're just going to write it in the Slack channel. But it's totally different when Joseph says, I just want to call it Spencer. He just helped me out so much. I was dealing with this issue with this customer, and you get, the full fidelity of that message. And another one, for example, is what we call a daily dose, because we hear a lot from our users. We're using our app to talk with our users and communicate with them. So we get lots of, affirmations like, congrats, you built it, or whatever, those sorts of things. So we'll forward those to that channel. So those are some of the things. I know those aren't necessarily employee growth, personal growth, that I think help form the culture here at Volley and help us feel connected to ourselves and our users, which I think is an important part of getting the culture right at a company, helping us feel like what we're doing really matters.
Josh, I'm certainly, we could jam with you for hours on end, just based on your entrepreneurship, the expertise that you bring to the table, and the fact that, you're just simply innovative in the market of remote working, and appreciate your time today. And we ask all of our podcast interviewees, what are the 3 words or maybe 3 thoughts of inspiration that you would like the world to hear?
I like to share, just be brave enough to try. Like that's the theme of my life. I shouldn't be an entrepreneur. I shouldn't have had this opportunity. No one in my hometown talked about, I didn't grow up knowing anyone who owned a business. It was like a revelation to me in my mid-20s when I found out, like, oh, you could own a business if you want to. You could choose to be wealthy. Whoa. I know it sounds stupid, but it's true. And it's really just being brave enough to try. And that's all of my successes have come from that, or maybe it's just being dumb enough to try, or ignorant enough to try. But, your next success is right around the corner, and there's probably fear that's preventing you from doing that, and some imposter syndrome that's in your head that you don't know how to do that. You shouldn't be able to do that. And if I said that, I wouldn't do most things that I do, but I am just brave enough to try. And so I think that's what I owe a lot of success to, is just learning that lesson early on. That
was amazing, Josh. We really appreciate you joining us today here on the Elevate Business Podcast.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure. It's been a great conversation.
Likewise. And again, appreciating your insights that you're sharing with Intuitive Performance and with our subscribers. And for those who would like to learn more about Volley, we're going to provide a link to your company's profile on the Elevate Business Podcast title page. Take good care. Thanks for listening to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm glad you could join us. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated with our latest content, make sure to visit our website. The link can be found in the episode description, where you can subscribe to the podcast, sign up for our newsletter, and learn more about our whole person leadership services. Sounds interesting? Explore the Whole Person Leadership Cohort by Intuitive Performance, a unique program that offers unparalleled support to managers on every step of their leadership journey. Our program features evidence-based assessments, workbooks, group coaching, and interactive learning experiences to help you level up your leadership skills. Reach out today to apply to one of our upcoming cohorts. Until next time, take care and stay curious.